You know what's funny? You can spend your whole life holding a family together and still be the first one they choose to let go. That realization didn't come to me in a single devastating moment. It built itself slowly, layer by layer, sacrifice by sacrifice, until it became the truth I could no longer deny. Growing up, I wasn't the sister people noticed. I wasn't the daughter people admired. I was the reliable one, the steady one, the one who quietly kept everything from falling apart, while my mother Karen and my younger sister Chloe shined under every spotlight. From the time we were kids, it was always Chloe who drew attention. She had this magnetic energy, cheerful, artistic, the kind of girl people wanted to be around. And I loved that about her. I loved being the one who walked her to school when Mom was busy with PTA meetings. I loved packing her lunch when Mom forgot. I loved being her safe place. It never felt like a burden then. It felt like love. But somewhere along the way, my love for them turned into a job I didn't remember applying for, but couldn't seem to quit. I remember the first time I became the fixer. I was 13 when the water heater in our house broke. Mom was in tears, panicking about the money. Dad was quiet as always, retreating into his newspaper like he didn't even live there. Chloe was too young to understand what was happening, but I couldn't just stand there. I spent hours on the phone calling plumbers, comparing prices, even negotiating payment plans. By the end of the day, the repairs were scheduled. Mom called me her little hero that night, and maybe that's when I started believing that if I just kept solving their problems, they would see me. They would choose me. It became my pattern. When bills piled up, I dipped into my babysitting savings to help. When Mom forgot Chloe's school project, I stayed up all night building it for her. When Dad left us for good a few years later, I was the one who found an after-school job to keep the lights on. Mom would thank me sometimes with a hug, sometimes just with a tired pat on the shoulder. Chloe would beam and call me her biggest lifesaver, but it never felt like I was enough. I wasn't the funny one. I wasn't the pretty one. I was just there. The one who made sure things didn't fall apart. By the time I was in college, that unspoken contract was fully signed. I worked 2 part-time jobs while taking night classes because Mom said Chloe's art camp was more important that summer. I didn't complain. I didn't even pause. It's just what I did. Every family emergency had my name on it. Every logistical mess was mine to clean. It wasn't until years later, sitting alone in my first real apartment in Philadelphia, that I realized I'd spent most of my life trying to earn love that was supposed to be unconditional. But old habits die hard. Even as an adult, I couldn't say no when Mom needed help covering her car insurance. I couldn't say no when Chloe wanted to study abroad, and Mom's contributions mysteriously fell short. And I definitely couldn't say no when Chloe got engaged and asked me to help plan the wedding of her dreams. Helping Chloe had always been my happy place. It was where I felt most useful, most connected. I was excited. I threw myself into it, building spreadsheets for venues, budgeting costs, organizing calls with florists. I wanted her day to be perfect. But here's the thing. No one tells you about being the fixer. You eventually disappear in the process. People start seeing you as a tool, not a person. They start expecting your support, like it's oxygen, not realizing you need to breathe too. I guess deep down, I always hoped they would see me one day, not as the problem solver, not as the emotional crutch, but simply as Hannah, the sister, the daughter, the woman who gave so much and just wanted to be loved in return. I didn't know it yet, but that wedding, the one I was so desperate to help create, would be the breaking point. It would shatter every illusion I'd built about my place in the family. But back then, sitting at my laptop late at night, researching bridal photographers while balancing work deadlines, I still believed I mattered. I still believed love was something you could earn if you just worked hard enough. I would soon find out how wrong I was. When Chloe called me that morning, her voice was practically vibrating with excitement. "Hannah, he proposed I'm getting married. I want you to be my maid of honor. I can't do this without you." I remember laughing, still half asleep, but already grabbing a notebook to start jotting down ideas. "Of course," I told her. "I've got you." At that moment, it didn't feel like a responsibility. It felt like home. Planning Chloe's wedding felt like finally stepping into something that belonged to both of us. Something I could build for her with her, where I wouldn't have to prove myself. I thought this would be the thing that made me visible, not as the fixer or the financial backup, but as the sister who mattered. The first few weeks were pure magic. We spent Saturday mornings in cozy coffee shops with color palettes and Pinterest boards spread across the table like secret treasures. I could see her eyes light up as we talked about floral arches and signature cocktails. It was the closest we'd been in years. I genuinely thought we were crafting not just a wedding, but a memory we'd tell our future kids about. I found myself diving in deeper than I expected. I researched local venues, tirelessly negotiated with vendors, and even used my own credit card to lock in early bird discounts. I fronted deposits without hesitation because Chloe kept saying, "We'll figure it out later," and I believed her. I wasn't keeping score. I just wanted to give her the perfect day. When Chloe mentioned she was considering a summer wedding, I worked through every weekend to find availability. I skipped happy hours with coworkers, passed on weekend trips with friends, all to make space for her timeline. And when she sent me a text at midnight asking me to look over catering menus, I'd be there. No question. I told myself this is what sisters do. But somewhere along the way, little things began to shift. At first, I brushed them off. Chloe started missing our planning calls. She'd text back hours later, sometimes not at all. She'd tell me, "Oh, Mom took care of that," or "Ashley had a great idea for the table arrangements." I remember sitting at my desk, phone in hand, telling myself not to overthink it. She's just busy. You're still the maid of honor. You're still her person. The first major crack came when Chloe booked the venue without telling me. It was a hotel I hadn't even toured. I found out through a group text sent by our cousin Ashley, who wrote, "So excited to see the Clayton Hotel in person." "Chloe, you've got great taste." I sat there staring at my phone like I'd missed a crucial chapter in a book I was supposed to be writing. When I called Chloe, she sounded a little defensive, brushing it off like it wasn't a big deal. "Mom found an opening and just booked it. She said you'd probably agree anyway." I told myself to let it go. What mattered was Chloe was happy, right? But then it kept happening. Bridesmaid dress shopping I wasn't invited. The cake tasting. They forgot to loop me in. Vendor meetings. Mom handled them with Chloe and Ashley. I started realizing that the wedding I thought I was planning didn't exist anymore. Not for me. I can still remember the moment I finally allowed myself to acknowledge it. I was sitting alone at the cafe where Chloe and I used to meet. I had our shared wedding notebook in front of me, pages carefully filled with notes and timelines I'd created. It felt so stupid suddenly, like I was holding the relic of a job I'd already been quietly fired from. But what really broke me wasn't the logistics, it was the silence. The way Chloe stopped calling me for the little things. The way I went from being her first phone call to an afterthought. There's a unique kind of heartbreak when you realize you've been working so hard to be part of something that's slowly pushing you out. At first I blamed myself. Maybe I had been too opinionated. Maybe I'd been too controlling about the budget. Maybe they were just trying to protect Chloe's peace. But no one ever said that to me. No one ever gave me the chance to adjust, to be better, to stay involved. They just moved on without me. I kept showing up, though. I kept paying deposits. I kept sending Chloe little gift ideas, playlist suggestions, and venue checklists, hoping each time it would reignite the connection we once had. But I was planning a wedding that wasn't mine to plan anymore. I didn't know yet how deep the betrayal would go. I didn't know that my own mother was orchestrating my gradual exclusion. I just knew that something precious was slipping through my fingers, and I was the only one trying to hold on. And as painful as it was, I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. It's strange how the biggest betrayals never come all at once. They arrive in small pieces. Quiet moments you brush off. Excuses you swallow. Little patterns you don't dare question until the full picture has already been painted without you in it. Looking back, I realized the signs were everywhere. But when you love someone, you learn how to lie to yourself better than anyone else can. The first sign was the group chat. Chloe had started a separate wedding group text. At first I thought nothing of it, families always have a million group chats. But this one was different. I was added late. I scrolled through days of messages, photos of bridesmaid dresses, cake designs, venue, walkthroughs, conversations I should have been part of. "Oh, Mom, she got excited and started things moving," Chloe texted when I asked her about it. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe it was just a miscommunication. It wasn't. The second sign came when I bumped into our cousin Ashley at a coffee shop. She was glowing, showing photos from Chloe's dress fitting on her phone. She was talking about how beautiful Chloe looked in her gown, how the alterations were nearly perfect, and how Mom had teared up when Chloe stepped out of the dressing room. I must have gone completely pale because Ashley stopped mid-sentence. "Wait, you weren't there?" I forced a smile, pretending I had a last-minute work emergency. My throat tightened so hard I could barely speak. But that wasn't true. I didn't miss the fitting. I was never invited. It's the kind of exclusion that cuts deeper than words. I'd spent years dreaming about being there for that moment, helping her zip up the dress, crying in the fitting room mirror, laughing about veils and shoes. Chloe and I had made a pact as kids that we'd go dress shopping together when the day came. That day came, and she didn't even think to call me. I told myself she probably thought I was busy, that Mom probably arranged it last minute, that maybe I was overreacting. But the signs kept stacking. Chloe's bridal shower. I didn't even know the date until I saw pictures posted online. Chloe surrounded by friends and family, opening gifts, laughing with Mom and Ashley by her side. I stared at my phone frozen. Aunt Michelle posted the photos with the caption, "A perfect day celebrating Chloe. Thanks to everyone who made it happen." Everyone. Except me. I wanted to scream, but all I did was scroll through the images over and over again, my heart splitting open in silence. When I confronted Chloe, she was quick to soften it. It all happened so fast. Ashley offered to help, and Mom said it would be easier. You know how things have been so hectic. I wanted to ask her if I was the only one who hadn't gotten the invitation, but I didn't. Because deep down, I was afraid of the answer. The more I asked questions, the more the distance grew. Chloe's answers got shorter, her tone less enthusiastic. She stopped asking for my advice, stopped calling to share the little details. She became someone I was chasing instead of someone I was walking alongside. The hardest part wasn't the logistics, it wasn't missing the meetings, or not getting to taste the cake. The hardest part was the silence. The space where I used to belong was now comfortably filled by someone else. And maybe what broke me most was realizing that no one seemed to notice I was gone. I would sit alone at home wedding binder, open in front of me, staring at timelines that no longer mattered, vendor quotes I wasn't needed for, and color palettes no one asked my opinion about anymore. I replayed every moment trying to figure out when it all shifted. Was I too opinionated? Did I make Chloe feel pressured? Was I too present, too involved? When I finally asked Chloe, directly raw, desperate, "Am I still your maid of honor?" She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I didn't want to hear. "Mom thinks it might be better if Ashley takes the lead," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've been so busy with work, and we just thought, maybe less stress for everyone." Everyone. That word again. Apparently I wasn't part of everyone anymore. I swallowed hard, my chest aching, my voice steady only because I'd spent so long perfecting the art of pretending I wasn't hurt. "If that's what you think is best," I told her, "I'll step back." I hung up the phone and sat in the stillness of my apartment, a silence so loud it roared in my ears. I realized I'd spent my whole life showing up for a family that had quietly decided to stop showing up for me. The signs had been there all along. I just didn't want to read them. Sometimes you brace yourself for the big blow, the screaming fight, the dramatic moment where everything shatters. But when my world collapsed, it didn't explode. It unraveled in a whisper over coffee from someone who didn't even know they were pulling the thread. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special. Just another ordinary morning when I stopped at a local bakery before work. I was waiting in line when Olivia, an old friend from college who now worked in event planning, spotted me from across the room. She came rushing over with a wide smile. "Hannah." "Oh my God, I heard Chloe's bachelorette weekend was incredible. The spa package you picked out was genius." My heart stalled. I blinked, forcing my voice to work. "Sorry, what weekend?" She paused, confused. "The one at Lakeview Resort. Sandra from the bridal shop told me you booked the whole thing. Chloe looked so happy in the photos." Photos. I hadn't been on that trip. I hadn't even known it happened. Something cold slid through my spine, but I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. I played along, pretending I'd forgotten the dates. Olivia chatted a little longer, then left, but I don't remember a single word she said after that. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart, the white noise rushing in my ears. I walked to my car in a daze, gripping my coffee cup so tightly the lid cracked. A bachelorette weekend, a spa trip, photos, and I wasn't invited. I didn't even know it happened. I sat there, parked on the side of the street, scrolling furiously through social media until I found them. The photos were everywhere. Chloe, Ashley, Mom, and the rest of the bridal party. Laughing, holding champagne glasses, wrapped in fluffy white robes. My sister's bachelorette party. The one I was supposed to plan. The one I'd always promised we'd do together. And I wasn't even on the guest list. I didn't cry right away. The shock was too sharp, too raw. I just stared, my thumb frozen on the screen while this crushing realization settled over me like wet cement. I wasn't part of this anymore. I wasn't her maid of honor. I wasn't even a friend in the room. It wasn't just the party. It was everything it represented. The silent vote that had already been cast behind my back. The decision that I wasn't wanted there, that maybe I was never really wanted at all. I called Chloe that night. My hands were shaking as I dialed, but I tried to sound calm when she picked up. "Hey, I heard the weekend was amazing." Silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered after a long pause. "I meant to tell you, but it all happened so fast. Mom said it would be better this way." Less tension. Less tension. The words sat between us like broken glass. Tension for who I asked, my voice breaking despite my best efforts. "Mom said you've been overwhelmed. She thought it might be easier if Ashley handled the final details." Easier? Easier to erase me. I wanted to scream, to demand why Chloe hadn't stood up for me, why she let this happen, but instead all I could manage was it really your decision? Another silence. And that silence answered everything. I don't know what hurt more, being excluded or realizing Chloe didn't fight for me. I hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at my phone, waiting for her to call back, to explain, to apologize, to fight for me in some way. She didn't. Instead, Mom texted me a few hours later. "Please don't make this about you. We're trying to keep things peaceful. This is Chloe's special time." I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I wanted to scream at the walls, to ask the sky why I had spent so many years being their safety net, just to be tossed aside like I was inconvenient. But all I did was sit in the dark, stunned by how quiet heartbreak could be. I kept replaying every moment, every florist I'd booked, every photographer I'd researched, every dollar I'd spent, wondering when exactly I stopped being Chloe's maid of honor and started being the problem. I thought about all the times I told myself it was just bad timing, just simple miscommunication, just my overthinking. But this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. I had always believed love was something you proved by showing up, by being the one who stayed late, who stepped in, who fixed the messes no one else wanted to touch. But maybe, just maybe, love isn't about how much you give. Maybe it's about whether people bother to keep you close when they no longer need you. And in that moment, staring at photos I wasn't in, I realized they didn't need me anymore. Worse, they didn't want me. It's funny how you can almost convince yourself that you've accepted something, that you've made peace with being left out, until a single piece of truth comes along and sets fire to the whole illusion. I thought I'd hit my breaking point when I found out about the bachelorette weekend. I thought nothing else could surprise me, but I was wrong. There was something worse. The truth wasn't just that I'd been excluded. The truth was that I had been erased on purpose. I didn't uncover it in a dramatic confrontation. There was no screaming, no slamming doors. It started with a mistake. A tiny slip in a conversation that cracked the whole thing wide open. It was Ashley. We ran into each other at a local farmer's market one Saturday morning. It was awkward, as if we both knew there was something unfinished hanging between us. She tried to keep things light, asking about work, about my apartment, but there was a nervous edge to her voice, like she was guarding something. When I casually asked how the final wedding details were coming along, her response caught me off guard. "Oh, your mom's amazing. She's so organized. She even saved all your texts to Chloe about not wanting to be part of the planning. It really helped Chloe feel like she wasn't the bad guy." I stopped mid-step, my stomach dropping. "What texts?" I asked, my throat suddenly dry. Ashley hesitated, realizing she'd said too much. "You know, the ones where you said you were too busy, and the ones where you didn't like Chloe's choices. Your mom showed them to us." I could barely hear the rest of what she said. I think I nodded. I think I smiled. I think I walked away like nothing had happened. But inside, I was already tearing through my phone, scrolling through my message history with Chloe, hunting for gaps I hadn't noticed before. And there they were. Text threads that didn't match my memory. Conversations that felt wrong. I called Daniel, Chloe's fiancé, later that day. We'd barely spoken during the wedding chaos, but something in me needed to reach out. I needed someone on the inside. someone who might not be swept up in Mom's version of the truth. "Hey, Daniel, I need to ask you something." He listened carefully as I told him what Ashley had said. His silence was long but not dismissive. "You know," he said slowly, "there were times Chloe showed me texts that didn't sound like you. I remember thinking, that doesn't feel like something Hannah would say. But I didn't question it. Chloe was so upset, and your mom was always there to explain. Oh, Hannah's overwhelmed. She's just stressed." My chest tightened. "Daniel, can you help me see those texts? I need to know what they said." A few hours later, he sent screenshots, messages supposedly from me saying things like, "I really don't care about these wedding details anymore. I'm too busy to keep doing this. Maybe Ashley's better suited for this. Chloe should just let her handle it." I had never written those words. I scrolled through the fake texts, stunned at how carefully they'd been crafted. They sounded just like me. Casual enough, detached enough, plausible enough to make Chloe believe I was the one walking away. But I wasn't. I never was. My heart pounded as I pieced it together. Mom had faked these conversations. She had created a version of me that Chloe would find easy to discard. I called my phone carrier. I requested logs. I checked timestamps. Some messages were missing entirely. Some were forwarded, and some were manipulated in ways I didn't even know were possible. The betrayal wasn't just social, it was digital. It was calculated. It was thorough. I thought about all the moments Chloe looked at me with quiet distance, all the times she didn't return my calls. And I realized she hadn't ghosted me. She believed I'd ghosted her. Mom had stolen my voice. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed that night, my body numb, my mind spinning as I stared at the undeniable evidence. This wasn't miscommunication. This wasn't an accident. This was a campaign. I thought about every sacrifice I had made, every dollar, every late-night phone call, every detail I had planned with love. And she erased me, not because I had failed her, but because I was inconvenient to her narrative. Mom didn't want me there, and she made sure Chloe didn't want me there either. I wanted to believe Chloe had a choice, that maybe she questioned some of it, that maybe she still saw me under all the lies. But even if she didn't, I couldn't carry this quietly anymore. The secret was out, and what I chose to do next would either set me free or keep me chained to a family story I no longer recognized. I just knew one thing: I couldn't stay silent. Not anymore. Grief is supposed to come in waves, but mine came like a flood. It swallowed me whole, my trust, my patience, my sense of belonging all gone in one crushing realization. For days after I uncovered the fake messages, I walked through my life like I didn't belong in it anymore. I still went to work. I still answered emails. I still smiled at neighbors. But inside, I felt like I had vanished from my own story. I had been the architect of Chloe's wedding. The spreadsheets, the budgets, the vendor lists, they all had my fingerprints. I had fronted payments from my own accounts because I believed in family. I believed in showing up. I believed that love meant stepping in when no one else could. But now I believed in something else. Boundaries. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to fix this. I was going to protect myself from it. It started with the honeymoon. I had secretly booked a $5,000 luxury getaway for Chloe and Daniel as a surprise gift of private suite premium flight spa experiences. It was supposed to be the one big reveal at the rehearsal dinner, the one thing that would remind Chloe that I always had her back. But now I wasn't sure she'd even want it. I logged into the travel agency's website that evening. I stared at the reservation screen for what felt like hours, my finger hovering over the cancel button. For so long, I had been told that my value came from what I provided, from being useful, from being generous. But I realize now, gifts given out of desperation aren't really gifts. They're lifelines we throw to people who are already swimming away. I canceled everything. I withdrew the entire honeymoon fund back to my personal savings. I sent short professional emails to the vendors. Plans have changed. Please cancel the following orders: the custom welcome baskets, the upgraded linens, the signature cocktail bar, gone. One by one, I untied myself from the wedding I had built, and I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter. I wasn't done yet. I combed through my financial statements and found the charges my mother had made using my card. Little things I hadn't noticed before: rental upgrades, last-minute venue changes, boutique orders for bridal party gifts I hadn't been consulted on. She never asked. She just assumed I'd cover it. Because that's what I always did. Not this time. I called my bank and explained the situation. The woman on the other end was kind but firm. Unauthorized family charges can still be disputed, she said. It's your right to reclaim your account. And I did. I filed every dispute. I challenged every charge. Because for the first time, I wasn't going to pay for the privilege of being excluded. I thought about calling Chloe, about telling her everything, about asking why she didn't fight for me. But I knew the conversation wouldn't be about finding answers. It would be about me begging to be re-included. I didn't want to beg. I wanted peace. And peace, I was learning, sometimes looks like walking away. Tyler, my boyfriend, noticed the change in me immediately. He came over the night I canceled the last reservation, holding takeout in one hand and my favorite movie in the other. "You're not okay," he said, not as a question, but as a quiet truth. I broke down, the words tumbling out in fractured pieces. The fake texts, the bachelorette party, the financial manipulation, the betrayal I had spent years pretending I could never experience inside my own family. His arms around me felt like the first safe place I'd had in weeks. When I finally looked up at him, my voice cracked but held steady. "I've spent my whole life buying my seat at the table, Ty. And I just realized I don't want to sit there anymore." He brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Then let's build a new table," he whispered. "One where you don't have to pay for your place." His words sank deep into me, settling in a space I hadn't known was hollow. For so long, I thought strength meant holding everything together. I thought walking away was weakness. But maybe strength is choosing yourself. Maybe strength is saying enough. I didn't send angry texts. I didn't make dramatic phone calls. I simply withdrew. I reclaimed my money. I reclaimed my time. I reclaimed myself. And for the first time, I realized that choosing peace over pleasing others didn't make me cruel. It made me whole. It's strange how the truth always finds its way out, sometimes through the smallest cracks, sometimes through the people you least expect. For weeks, I had been untangling myself from Chloe's wedding, quietly pulling back, reclaiming what was mine. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought I could walk away, heal in my own space, and let the whole thing fade into the rear view. But the truth had other plans. It was Daniel who finally pushed the door open. He called me one evening, his voice low, urgent. "Hannah, can we meet, please? It's important." We sat at a quiet cafe on the edge of the city, the kind of place where the chairs squeak and the coffee tastes a little burnt, but no one asks too many questions. He didn't waste time. "Something's wrong," he said, his hands gripping his cup like it might fly away. "I've been comparing phone records. Chloe's your mom's, yours." I stared at him, not knowing what to say. "Your mother was intercepting your messages," he continued. "She was forwarding some of your texts directly to her phone, and she deleted others before Chloe ever saw them." I blinked, struggling to process what he was saying. I knew about the fake texts, but I hadn't realized how deeply she had gone. She wasn't just creating a false narrative, she had been filtering my real voice out of Chloe's life entirely. Daniel kept talking, his words sharp, angry, but careful. "Chloe thought you were pulling away, that you didn't care. She only saw the messages your mom allowed her to see." He pulled his phone from his pocket, flipping it toward me to show the proof. "And here's the worst part, your mother told Chloe that you canceled the honeymoon to punish her." My throat tightened. "That's not true," I whispered, almost laughing at the absurdity. "I know," he said quickly. "I told Chloe to look deeper. She went through her deleted messages, her backups. She found the gaps. She saw how the conversations didn't add up. She's devastated, Hannah. She feels like her whole world just flipped upside down." I sat there, the weight of it all pressing against my chest. I wanted to feel relieved that Chloe finally knew the truth, but all I felt was exhaustion. It had taken so much damage, so much distance. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked. Daniel leaned forward, his voice softer now. "Because she wants to talk to you. She wants to make it right. She didn't know the extent of what was happening." I shook my head, tears stinging behind my eyes, but she believed it. She didn't even question it. "Your mother made it believable," he said gently. "She showed fake screenshots. She told Chloe you were stressed, that you resented her. Chloe trusted her. She shouldn't have, but she did. Part of me wanted to stay angry. It was safer there." Anger didn't ask me to open up again. Anger didn't ask me to risk getting hurt twice. But another part of me, The part that still remembered Sunday brunches, sleepovers, late-night talks with Chloe, knew I couldn't live in anger forever. I agreed to meet her. When I walked into the same cafe a few days later, Chloe was already sitting by the window, nervously twisting her napkin. Her eyes were red, and when she looked up at me, I saw it, the deep, aching regret. "I'm so sorry," she said before I even sat down. I didn't know. I really didn't. And when I started to question it, Mom would she would always have an explanation. I believed her even when it didn't feel right. I stayed quiet, letting her speak. "I thought you were pulling away." "I thought you didn't want to be part of this anymore." Her voice cracked. "But you were always there, and I pushed you out." The pain in her words landed heavy, but there was something else too. Something I didn't realize. I needed honesty. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder filled with my own record screenshots, receipts, email confirmations, proof of what I had contributed, proof of what I had said and what I hadn't. I slid it across the table. This is what really happened. She spent the next half hour going through every page, her hands trembling, as she connected the pieces, as she realized how carefully our mother had constructed this wedge between us. "I don't even know who to be angry at anymore," Chloe whispered, tears falling. "At Mom, at myself, at how easy it was to believe I didn't matter to you. You always mattered to me," I said, my voice soft but firm. "Even when I didn't matter to you." We sat there for a long time, sifting through the damage. When she finally spoke again, her voice was steadier. "I want you at my wedding, as my maid of honor, as my sister. I don't want to do this without you." For the first time in months, I let myself believe that maybe we could rebuild, but I also knew something had to change. This wasn't just about an apology. It was about making sure it never happened again. The day the truth came out wasn't neat. It didn't wrap everything in a perfect bow, but it cracked open the walls we had built. And sometimes that's the most honest place to start. Forgiveness isn't a single decision. It's 1,000 small choices you make after the explosion, and I wasn't ready to make all of them. When Chloe asked me to be her maid of honor again, I didn't say yes right away. I wanted to. God, I wanted to step back into that role, to pick up where we left off, to fast forward to the part where we laugh over glasses of wine like none of this ever happened. But the truth was, I couldn't just erase the distance that had been carved between us. I needed something I'd never asked for before: boundaries. I told Chloe, gently but firmly, if I come back, it can't look like before. I can't be the person who fixes everything. I won't carry this alone anymore. To my surprise, she didn't fight me on it. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I want us to do this differently." And we did. For the first time, I let Chloe lead her own wedding planning. I didn't step in to save the day when a vendor fell through. I didn't offer to front extra deposits. I stayed in my lane, contributing where I was asked, not where I felt obligated. It felt foreign at first, like I was missing my cue. But slowly, it became something else. It became freedom. Chloe and I rebuilt one conversation at a time. We talked about everything, not just the wedding, but the blind spots, the manipulation, the years I had spent playing a role I didn't know I could walk away from. I think I believed Mom because part of me needed to, Chloe admitted one afternoon as we walked through the park. I needed to think you were the one pulling away, because it hurt less than believing I was the one letting you go. I squeezed her hand, understanding more than I wanted to. We had both clung to stories that made the pain bearable, but some stories need to be rewritten. My relationship with Mom was different now, quiet, distant, and defined by clear limits. I wasn't interested in revenge. I didn't need a dramatic confrontation. What I needed was control over my own space, and that meant no shared credit cards, no secret favors, no blind acceptance. When I saw her at family events, we exchanged polite words, nothing more. There were moments when she'd reach for the old scripts. "You're still upset after all I've done," but I no longer let those words sink their hooks into me. I learned how to walk away from guilt that wasn't mine to carry. The wedding day arrived with a strange calm. Standing beside Chloe as she adjusted her veil, I realized I wasn't mourning the version of us that had been broken. I was proud of the one we had rebuilt. She turned to me, her voice soft. "Thank you for coming back." I smiled. "Thank you for letting me be here, as I am not as who I used to pretend to be." When I gave my maid of honor speech, I didn't talk about the drama, the betrayal, or the storm we had survived. I talked about resilience, about sisterhood that stretches but doesn't snap, about the power of showing up not because you have to, but because you choose to. After the reception, Tyler and I took a quiet walk outside hand in hand under the string lights. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," I said, and this time I meant it. I used to think I needed Chloe to pick me first to feel worthy. But I've learned something far more valuable. I don't need to be picked. I don't need to be needed. I don't need to be the family safety net. I need to be at peace with myself. And sometimes that means creating distance. Sometimes it means choosing silence over explanation. Sometimes it means closing the door and knowing you don't owe anyone a key. Chloe and I have continued to heal since then, but it's not a perfect road. There are days when old patterns try to creep back in, when I feel that tug to fix, to overextend, to prove. But I catch it now. I've built new muscles. I know what my limits feel like. Tyler and I eventually got engaged, and this time we planned everything on our own terms. No family pressure, no guilt-based decisions. When Chloe offered to help, I smiled and said, "Only if you want to, not because you think you have to." She understood exactly what I meant. That's the thing about growth. Once you start living with boundaries, you realize they aren't walls meant to keep people out. They're gates you control, and they protect the version of you that finally believes you're enough. For the first time, I'm not chasing inclusion. I'm not performing for a seat at anyone's table. I'm building my own, and I've saved a chair for the people who truly see me, not for what I can give, but for who I am. If there's one thing my story taught me, it's that love without boundaries isn't love, it's self-erasure. For most of my life, I believed that my worth was tied to what I could do for others. I thought being the reliable one, the fixer, the one who never said no, would somehow guarantee me a permanent place in the hearts of the people I loved. I thought if I gave enough of my time, my money, my energy, they would choose me, they would value me, but they didn't, and I've come to understand something that changed the way I see every relationship in my life. If people only keep you close because you serve their needs, they're not really keeping you, they're using you. That's not family, that's not love, that's not where I want to live anymore. Setting boundaries wasn't easy for me. I had spent years being the person who cleaned up every mess, covered every expense, and shouldered every emotional burden. Stepping back felt like I was abandoning them. But what I realized through tears, through silence, through hard, honest work, is that I was actually abandoning myself long before I ever walked away from them. In life, we're told to be generous, to be there for the people we love, and I still believe in that. But there's a difference between giving and surrendering. There's a difference between supporting someone and sacrificing yourself to keep their approval. I've learned to ask new questions now. Does this relationship leave room for me to say no? Am I valued for who I am, or just for what I provide? Is this love, or is this a transaction disguised as family loyalty? To anyone who feels trapped in a family dynamic where love feels conditional, where inclusion is earned and never given freely, I see you. I know the pain of working endlessly for people who never even bother to check if you were okay. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't have to keep proving your worth. Real love, healthy love, survives boundaries. In fact, it respects them. And when you start building those boundaries, you won't lose the people who truly care about you. You'll lose the ones who never really did. The freedom that comes with choosing yourself is a freedom I wish I had known sooner. But it's not too late for me or for you. We deserve to sit at tables where we are valued, not just needed, and if we can't find that table, we can build our own. Because we are enough, just as we are.